and George Bush Jr. and John Kerry and scores of senators and congressmen. And the funniest thing is, in this last presidential cycle, in interviews, both George Bush and John Kerry were asked, could you tell, by an interviewer, could you tell us something about this organization you belong to, Bones? And both of them gave the identically same answer. It's a secret. I can't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so there you are. And this is why I say the elections are a total farce. If you have two guys belonging to a secret organization, the media is either afraid or so complicit that they don't really press the issue, and the guy just says it's a secret. I'm not going to tell you. Does that sound right? I mean, Gianni, what do you think?
Well, what about the people such as the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Habsburgs, the Warburgs? Are they not all part of that? The family?
Yes. Yeah. In the first book that I wrote that dealt with the sort of a conspiracy issue is unfortunately out of print. It was called The Satori and the New Mandarins. The Satori being the hidden group behind, issues, and the Mandarins, of course, being the same thing as they are in China, the sort of the bureaucrats that run things for them. And in that book, I list 3,400 of these people internationally who are members of other organizations like the Bilderbergs, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission. By the way, the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations were both started by Illuminists.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the Bilderbergers, and we have this whole cabal of these organizations that may initially have had a different purpose or a different plan, but have been taken over by this chameleon sort of organization called the Illuminati, who now run the leaderships in all of these organizations, all the way down to the Bohemian Club in San Francisco.
All right, let's talk about, again, listeners, it's toll-free, and we're talking to Dr. Krieg. It's 1-800-433-1429, phone bridge 712-580-1100, punch in 97524. Adrian, let's talk about these secret societies for a minute, because it seems like the path that we're on, totalitarianism, communism, socialism, is certainly coming from the elite, and as we've just discussed, that these are supposedly the Illuminati. Now, is there a hierarchy of secret societies?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say. I would think, the same sort of people and names keep popping up perpetually. You go to the World Economic Forum and you look who attended it, and you go to a Bilderberger meeting and who attended it, and you go to a CFR conference and who attended it, and then you compare these names to the boards of directors of the major corporations and banks in the world, and you keep coming up with the same names over and over and over again. So obviously there is some binding, organizational structure. And I don't think anyone has ever gotten far enough into the Illuminist organizations to be able to really go in detail in how this functions. Bones has a meeting once a year up in the Thousand Lakes area of New York on a place called Deer Island.
Mm-hmm.
And they have between 600 and 900 people who go to this meeting annually. And interestingly, some of the most powerful people in our government go to this meeting. The very fact, how they organize these things, it's a conspiracy. When the World Economic Forum meets in Davos, they get the Swiss military to prevent, they stop rail traffic into Davos, and you can't drive into Davos, and you can't walk into it. It's on a plateau. It's very difficult to get to. So by cutting out the rail traffic, they keep the protester. They block the protesters in Zurich, you know, where they get really angry and riot because they're not allowed to go and protest this. The Bilderbergers meeting Bilderbergers had a meeting recently in Sweden near Gothenburg, and they held the meeting on an island, and the Swedish army put concertina barbed wire fences across the bridge that went there and put big steel posts you couldn't drive over them and kept everybody off the island. So these people not only are extremely wealthy, but they very obviously control the police forces in most of these countries. And, you know, the same thing can be said here. In the last presidential cycle, there was a debate in Boston. And I happened to have lived in New Hampshire at the time, and a number of my friends went down to Boston. They wanted to protest because they were I think some of them were for the Libertarian candidate and some were for the Constitution and America First parties, and they were all excluded, of course, from the debates. And they went down to Boston, and the Boston police kept 14,000 demonstrators 3 miles away from the place where the debate was, behind fences, wouldn't let them, you know, they wouldn't let them protest, wouldn't let them. Is that a republic? Is that a democracy? What kind of a country is that does that? In St. Louis, they arrested and handcuffed the Libertarian candidate and the Green Party candidate. Arrested them, handcuffed them, took them to the police station, didn't charge them, held them until the debate was over, and then let them go. What kind of a country does things like that? I mean, this is Stalinist America? This is terrible.
It is Stalinist America.
Yeah. And so, you know, Gianni, what can you say? You know, I hear some music.